We finally know when I can get my hands on the new contrast paint, and so can you. We also have an update from Immortal Empires for Total War Warhammer 3, and we've got some new miniatures coming out from Parabellum Games. I'm Angela, you're watching Hobby Night. Now let's get into this week's hobby news. We're gonna start this week's news off the exact same way that we did last week, talking about the new contrast colors, because we now know officially when they're going to be coming out, including alongside these shades as well as that new white primer, which I'm very excited for. So they're going to be going up for pre-order July 2nd, this coming Saturday. They'll be on pre-order for 2 weeks, and then they will release and officially be in our hands starting July 16th. And I, for one, cannot wait. I am definitely going to be getting every single color, every single shade, and that primer, possibly 2 cans of that primer, because frankly, I'm very excited for that one, and I really just want a really nice white primer. But I'm very hyped for this. Let me know if you're going to be getting it yourself as well. Now, if you have been wanting to find out a little bit more about these paints, maybe see them in action, and you happen to have the Warhammer Plus app, the Citadel Color Masterclass Series paint class that's on there is going to be having some tutorials coming out very soon featuring the new colors. And honestly, it might make me actually log onto my account and check it out, because I really do want to see what these colors are going to be capable of. We've seen some sort of still images, but I want to see how the paint flows. Are they adding anything to it? How much water are they having in their brush? I have questions and I need answers, and I just want these paints out now. It's that time of the video where I interrupt to tell you about my Patreon and to let you know that we just added a Discord server, which all tiers get access to. So if you're wanting a way to chat with me, share with me your projects, or just tell me what board games you're playing, definitely make sure to check the link below and check out my Patreon. Creative Assembly has revealed the full map for Immortal Empires, and it is a big old map, and I'm hyped.
Shown us the world that will belong to the Skaven, yes!
He thinks it's going to belong to the Skaven, but what he doesn't know is that Silostra will sing her way into your hearts and conquer all. I cannot wait to actually play on this map. We've got to see what it looks like. It's going to have 40% more settlements than the previous map that we saw in Total War Warhammer 2, which is
40% more breeding grounds, yeah!
Indeed. It's gonna be so good. But the thing that I also want to talk about is they've revealed a little bit more about the sea lanes. And they're not exactly what I was hoping for. They do seem to be just a short-range teleport, which is a little bit of a shame. However, I think their placement is fantastic. And I'm actually very intrigued by some of them, because I'm going to be curious to see how various factions actually interact when using them. For example, one of the sea lanes is really close to the Dark Elf region, or at least what was the Dark Elf region, and I expect that's going to remain the same for the most part. And that connects to an area next to Cathay on the other side of the world. Well, I have no idea what those battles are going to look like. I feel like that is a faction mix-up that I've never really considered it before, because Cathay didn't exist until Total War Warhammer 3. However, I think it could be really interesting. And in my head, what is happening when you're playing as a Dark Elf is you're just going to be using the Cathay area to raid with your Corsairs and the Black Ark ships, because I can't imagine that they're going to necessarily be pleasant, and I feel like the lands are going to be hostile to the Dark Elves on the Cathay side and vice versa for the Dark Elves. And I want to see what that's going to look like. I think there's a lot of interesting opportunity for cool things to happen in this game, and I just want to play it in August when the beta comes out, and it's just going to be so cool. There are a lot of updates happening over on the Warhammer community site for both Age of Sigmar, Kill Team, and Warhammer 40,000. Points updates galore, rules updates, because we have a new season of Warhammer 40k showing up, and there are a number of interesting things happening. I want to go through a couple of them, and one in particular. First and foremost, of some of the rules changes that I've been seeing, I'm glad to see that the Necrons finally have command protocols that they can just have through the entire game. They still get their additional one that you get every round, but now they can have a permanent one that just lasts the entire time, and I feel like this is a very overdue change, and they should have had it updated a long time ago, because it's always felt like they were kind of on the short end of this is what you get to do in your command phase as a faction.
They have also made it so that we no longer have to be near our characters to benefit. We got Wi-Fi finally.
That's so good. I had actually forgotten completely about that, but that's also another big change that I personally am just really happy to see. Now, there are a ton of updates for a lot of the various factions in the game, so if we don't talk about the one that you're interested in, make sure to go and check out the community pages so that you can find out what's going on. There have also been a lot of points changes, especially in Warhammer 40k, but across all of them. And some of the ones that I found really interesting and very telling of the fact that we are absolutely approaching a new edition of the game is the fact that both Space Marines and Necrons have had some severe points drops. And again, the Necrons I think are kind of overdue and they needed it, but even the Space Marines had kind of been lowered in the tiers of what was competitive, and so now they are a little bit better, although they always get love, they're always getting updates, so it's not really unexpected that we're seeing changes here with them. Now, the main thing that I want to talk about with all of these various changes that are happening, because like I said, there are a lot, is the fact that with that new season of Warhammer 40k comes a new chapter approved book. And in that chapter approved book, we had already learned that they were going to collect all of these secondary objectives and put it into this one book. Very nice of you, GW. That way we're not having to carry around a bunch of different books just to have all these secondary objectives. But one thing that they hadn't talked about until now is the change to command points. Holy cow, there's some interesting changes happening with command points when it comes to matched play. If you are wanting to play an incursion game, so 1,000 points, you now only start the game with 3 command points. If you're wanting to play a Strike Force game, the 2,000 point level, you start with 6 CP. Limiting, but offers an interesting challenge. So not so bad so far. And it also pairs a little well with the fact that now, instead of just on your command phase, you also gain a CP on your opponent's command phase. So you're gaining 1 every turn, which is very, or I guess technically 2 every turn, every round rather. The thing that is—
2 every round, 1 every turn.
Exactly, thank you. The other change though, and this is the one that I think people are really not going to like, and I find it very, very interesting that they chose to do this. I also am not a fan, is the fact that now, instead of you just being able to give your warlord a relic and a warlord trait, or any character a relic or warlord trait, it now costs a CP, which is not great. Because if you're playing a 1,000 point battle especially, that means you're more than likely going to start that game with 1 CP because you're definitely going to be giving your warlord a warlord trait and a relic. Like, who isn't going to do that? That's just inherently something that you're going to do in the game. It's what GW has kind of taught us that we have to do in the game. So the fact that they're really, really, really limiting how many CP we're all starting with is an interesting choice.
I'm surprised that they didn't. So characters, named characters with their warlord traits always have the limitation of it's a defined warlord trait, so a lot of people don't like to take them as their warlord. Right?
Correct.
Well, they made it so that when you take a named character, they get their warlord trait without spending the CP.
Yeah, they haven't, that's not been clarified, right?
It's not in the rule as far as I know, but at least it would give, I think, more of a reason to make your characters the leader then.
Honestly, yes.
Random sorcerer is the leader because I want this good warlord trait.
You know, that is a fair point, and honestly, I hadn't really thought about that. But yeah, I really like the idea of, if they're gonna do this, maybe the named characters who have this is just the warlord trait you get, it doesn't cost anything, so that it at least gives you the benefit of bringing that particular unit, which means, hey, maybe Mortarion will actually be seen on the board more, or the Void Dragon, or any of those leader characters that are all named and everything. But again, this is sort of a weird change, and I'm very curious to know what your thoughts are on it. So make sure to leave a comment down below and let me know, do you like these match play changes, or do you think they're kind of not the best? Last but not least this week in the news, we want to talk about Parabellum games, because Conquest First Blood, the 2nd edition of Conquest Last Argument of Kings, is out, and they have a brand new 2-player starter set that is coming sometime later this year. They will be previewing it at Gen Con, so if you happen to be at that event, you'll be able to take a look at the contents of the game. And I don't know if they're going to have any available or not, but it would be cool to see if they had pre-order copies available. But let's talk a little bit about Conquest and what's coming in this new starter set, because I thought it was neat, and I really like some of the new designs that are coming out. Conquest is a mass battle rank and file war game with a rule set designed by Alessio Cavator, I believe is how his name's pronounced, and if I butcher that, I'm so sorry. But he worked on Warhammer Fantasy and is the lead designer, or one of the lead head designers for River Horse. I've seen Conquest in stores. My first experience with Conquest was at Gen Con, and I always thought it looked really cool. I always liked the fact that it did have that sort of old Warhammer Fantasy vibe with the rank and file nature of the game. I never got into it because the models were a little bit larger scale than I really wanted to work with at the time, but I've really always dug the designs, and that's what drew me into this new starter set that they're coming out with, because it's going to be featuring two specific armies. It has the old world, the old Dominion, which I believe is some of their human factions. And then it's got the newer Wadhun, I believe is how it's pronounced. And that is their sort of orc equivalent, which always looks really cool. I always like sort of orky factions. The thing that you get in this game is you get both of those models, or both of those armies rather. You get the rule book that you'll need, everything that you need to get started with the game. And I just really like seeing this new edition come out, seeing these new models, because they look just really cool. Like, they're big, they're chunky, there's a lot of really cool designs on them, and I think they just look really fun to paint. The other thing that struck me as a just really neat thing coming out for the particular faction as a new model set is for the Old Dominion. They have these new models called the Bone Golems, which are coming out. And I personally really like undead-esque golems, but the thing that really drew me to these particular models is the fact that they really remind me of the sarcophagi that you see in Dreadnoughts, but in a more like high fantasy medieval sort of setting, because it's actually a stone golem. But I just love the center sarcophagus look, and it's just so rad. And again, I really want to paint these. If you've ever played Conquest, let me know down in the comments below, because again, it's one of those ones that I've always sort of been interested in. The models have always looked really cool, and I'd love to learn more about it. All right, that has been it for this week in hobby news. We got to take a look at some big changes coming to Warhammer 40,000 and some of the other games, as well as we got to cover Parabellum games for the first time on the channel, which I've never done before, and frankly, I really do love their models, so I'm gonna try to keep a better eye on them going forward. I have been Angela, and before I head out, I wanna give a huge thank you to my patrons for making it so that content like this can continue to happen. Without your guys' support, we wouldn't be doing this, so thank you very, very much. I hope you have a wonderful hobby night, and I will see you next time. Bye.